Hello, welcome. It's Andrew Horsfield here. Whether you're watching this feeling fatigued and looking for some answers, or perhaps even energized and wanting to do more, then it's really important that we all look to increase our productivity around managing our time, energy, and attention to get through life so we can have more of an impact and do the work that motivates us and matters to us. And I think the problem with productivity conversations in the past is they're a little bit like this perspective with Dilbert. And I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just so I stop talking so you can read through that cartoon. And so I'm sure you've all felt a little bit like that we're just overworked, overconnected, and largely feeling overwhelmed. And that despite our best efforts, we still remain time poor and task fatigued. And one of the problems that we have for this, or one of the main culprits for this constant sense of fatigue, is our phone. We're always on in a world that makes us always available, always connected, always accessible, and always wanting to reach into our pocket the moment we have any spare time to find out what's going on across all of the social apps that demand our attention and keep us time poor and pretty much task fatigued. So before I get on to talking about some of the strategies of how we can shift that, it's really important before we jump into tactics to look at three mindsets that you might have to overcome. Otherwise, you're going to default back to the very behaviors that you're probably trying to escape listening to this. So let's jump into those three mindsets that's going to keep you feeling more fired up, more burned out than you are fired up. So the first is essentially a sense of status, that being busy and promoting that we're busy gives us a sense of feeling more important, that we're more respected, we're more valuable. And so we like to promote that sense of being busy all the time. And this shows up when we tell each other how many emails we have that are unread or that we got that day, how busy our life is, or how we're sitting in back-to-back meetings and have no time, or we pulled the all-nighter to get through some work. All of those stories are really just us positioning the fact that I'm valuable and worthy and doing a good job. And if that's the thing that you're going to pursue, what's going to happen at the end of that is people are going to start to get bored with the story you tell, because at the end of the day, no one cares about how busy you are. What we care about is the impact that you're having or the excitement that you have for your work or your life. So if you have this sense of status, boredom is one of the things that you're going to end up with in your life that's going to prevent you from doing the things that you want to be doing. The second thing's all about stuff that creates burnout. That's our second B, is that we have this sense of control that we fail to delegate. And so we get stuck in the daily demands and details that we really should be trying to escape as much as we can. And we feel like this when no one else can do the work as well as you or to the standard you expect. And so you think it's just easier if you do all of the work yourself. And so you fail to delegate some of those things that shouldn't be in your control, but you keep in your control. The third and final mindset is all about not having a sense of priorities. And so when everything is of equal importance, whether that's our work, our family, our life, our health, our career, our finances, our immediate family relationships or extended family relationships, all the friendship groups, keeping up with social media, posting things properly, there's just a raft of work that there is there to be done. And if you don't understand for yourself what is valuable to you and what is the less value work, then everything has equal importance. And so when it comes time to make decisions about should I be doing A or B, it's very hard to make that decision because everything's important. Every person's important. Every piece of work is important. And so what we end up is a sense of busyness where we're running around being busy and having no time to reflect or recalibrate about the impact we're having or the value that we're contributing. And so with that busyness, we start to have a bored story which creates this cycle of our mindset around those 3 Bs: bored, burnout, and busyness. And so what we have to be aware of, which is probably you're already aware of if you're listening to this recording, is that for the future of work, value and making a valuable contribution to the workplace, the culture, the people we interact with, our clients, our customers, that is the future of work. That's where people are spending their time and money and energy as we move forward. And more so when the world is opening up and becoming so accessible to the products that we have or the services that we offer. And so when we're all busy, we rarely have the amount of time, money, or resource. And so the new status quo is being able to deliver results within a demanding context. And what we know about high performers is they carve out that time for the work that has an impact, moves things forward, or makes results happen. They're not just stuck in end-to-end meetings or work that has no value. So as a way of just checking in, it might be worth you pausing the recording for a moment and just ask yourself, what are the top 20 tasks that take up most of your time? And the note that you can see down the bottom of the slide here is not based on the actual hours that you've worked or what your PD says or what's been scheduled in your calendar, but the things that you actually spent your time doing: answering emails, chatting to people, helping a colleague because they walked in at your desk or into your office and you had 15 minutes in that conversation. So reflecting on the last week or month or day, what were the tasks that took up most of your time? And of course, if you wanted to pause the video to do that, that will give you greater insight. If you don't want to do that, just keep a mental inventory about some of those tasks that took up your time. Because what I'd like to do is start to talk to you about the 4 forms of work we can do when we lace up our shoes and get to work every day. And those 4 forms of work are based on 2 axes. The work that's either mundane or meaningful, so that's our vertical axis. What is the work that we're doing? And also, what's the impact of that work, which is our horizontal axis? Is it stuff that keeps us stationary in the status quo, or is it things that help us be successful? And when we look at the type of work that we're doing, we can generally put them into one of these 4 categories. And the first is the pointless stuff. It's the mundane work that has no meaning and doesn't move us forward at all. So by definition, it's pointless. The second is the stuff that is necessary but doesn't necessarily light us up. So it might be mundane work, but it is necessary as part of being a successful person or business. Think about your tax as an example for this work. No one really loves tax time and filling in and the tax form and getting all the receipts and all the stuff together, but it is necessary for us to make sure that we have paid our tax and that we don't get audited and those sorts of things. So necessary, but not brilliant. The third form of work we can do is all the stuff that has potential that we're not quite getting to yet, which is why it's in that stationary box. So it is meaningful. It's stuff that we would like to be doing, or we talk to people when we go out for coffee about what we should be doing or what you believe would be more important to be spending your time on, but we're just not getting to it or not getting to it consistently. And finally, the top quadrant where ideally we'd like to spend most of our time is that valuable work that's meaningful to us and our organization or our clients or customers. And it's also the thing that helps to make us successful. So 4 forms of work that we can do. And so the obvious first question, based on me asking you where you spend your time, is where are you currently spending most of your time based on that list that you either wrote down or kept in your head? Is it in the valuable? Is it in the pointless or the potential? Or perhaps you're stuck in that necessary work, managing the day-to-day demands and drift that a lot of jobs now require. So the rest of this webcast, I'd like to spend talking about how do we actually make the shift in terms of each of these quadrants. So if you're stuck down in this left quadrant of pointless work, how do you stop doing that? Or if you find that you're doing a lot of valuable work already and you want to increase that, how do you expand your productivity so you can do more of that work. Now, this is a short webcast, so we're going to talk about 4 tactics, one for each quadrant and a bonus one. But of course, if there's more that you require, then please get in touch, because there's 12 tactics altogether that make up a full program around productivity, if this is of interest to you. So let's jump into these tactics and have a look. Quadrant 1 is all about reducing or stopping the pointless work. I call it the inverted Nike technique, which is just don't do it. So the first tactic I want to talk to you about is doing the bare minimum. Many of us who are high performers and are programmed to do a really good job actually invest too much time in this low value work that doesn't have to be done that brilliantly. And we spend time with long email trades of organising a time to catch up with friends or with a colleague, or we go to meetings that don't have any value and give an hour of our time wishing that we could get that back because it didn't have any value. Or potentially we spend time with those overly demanding clients who are more problem than they are performance orientated, and we spend lots of time pleasing and placating them, thinking we have to serve the customer in that way, but really it's not leading to any valuable outcomes or the relationship being improved. And so the price we pay is that we have less time to do our valuable work because we're spending time in pointless work. So the trick here is go against the grain probably of your performance orientation and do the bare minimum. Don't necessarily read all the notes to the meeting where they're never referred to in that meeting. Don't be as prepared as you have been in the past. Or potentially you might need to sit down with that client and talk about the level of fee that they're paying to the level of attention they're getting so that you can do less of that work. Or don't return that client's call and see what happens. You need to find your own strategies that work for you. But the tactic here is to not find the excellence in the low value work to allow yourself to have more time to do it for the work that matters. The second quadrant is all about enhancing your efficiency. The photo behind the heading there is a guy called Clyde Beatty, and he was one of the first lion tamers who brought in a whip and chair into the cage to tame the lion. And the whip is just for show and to make some noise. It's actually the chair that does all the work. And the reason it does the work is because the lion sees 4 legs and doesn't quite know which one to focus on, and so is a bit hesitant and a little bit unsure and uncertain, and so doesn't know which leg to attack, and so is a little bit lost in terms of its power to what it could do. And I think sometimes we're a little bit like that lion. We've got our focus across so many areas that we don't actually do the valuable work and be efficient with the time that we have. To give you an example about how we can improve our second quadrant, doing that necessary work more efficiently, I want to give an example of Elton John, who has a great system that he's created. If you can imagine Elton's life, he's a musician who travels the world giving concerts in different cities, different countries all around the world. And that means setting up a piano, packing it down, shipping it, tuning it, making sure it's great, do the lights work, does the sound work, can audiences get into the arena, is the security appropriate in front of the stage. There's a number of things that have to be organized. And so one of the tactics that Elton does to increase his efficiency of not having to think about all that stuff is in his rider, the thing that rock stars have to say, for the concert, I need these things in my dressing room, is he has a rider that says, I only want yellow M&Ms in the bowl on the table. Take out all the other colors. Now, Elton isn't a diva in terms of only liking that color. What he's doing is putting that in the rider to say, if he walks into the dressing room and sees that there's only yellow M&Ms, he knows that people have read through his rider and are more likely to deliver the concert and have the setup also done because they've found that small detail. And if he walks in and sees that the M&Ms are just on the table, then, and there's different colors, he knows that they probably haven't read through some of his other requirements, and he might need to go to them and check and demand that gets done. So that's a simple system, necessary work of setting up a concert, lots of detail, but where Elton doesn't have to worry about that detail every single time. And so, of course, the question is, what are the systems that you could create around your necessary work for you to be more efficient? Do you have email rules for anything where you have an email where you're copied into that email and it goes to a specific folder and it doesn't clog up your email, for example? Or perhaps do you have an agenda for meetings to ensure that the person who's arranged the meeting has thought about how that time is going to be used most effectively? Or even better, do you have a 30-minute stand-up meeting so that the meetings are efficient and effective, as opposed to just a big talk fest where there's no outcomes? There's lots of systems that are small that we can create that help us do that necessary work in less time, not more time. Have a think about some of those for you if you want to get out of that necessary quadrant. The third quadrant is all about the potential work where we need to shift our attention. And this is all about the work we could be doing, but we're just not getting to, or getting to consistently, or perhaps we're getting to this work when the kids are in bed and we're sitting on the couch after dinner doing the work then, or potentially while we're watching the latest Netflix that we're binging on and doing work at the same time. Why we call it a focus on our attention is because there's been a shift over the past 30 years about what we need to focus on for efficiency. In the 1990s, it was all about managing our time because people were saying that they didn't have enough time to do their work. So that was all a focus on time. And then we moved in the 2000s to smartphones and always being connected. And so work started to be about managing our energy when we were doing our work and when we were switching off. And now, with an information overload and abundance of information that is draining our attention, now it's all about how we focus our attention to be as efficient and effective as possible. And the tactic I want to share with you in this regard is from a book called When by Daniel Pink. He wrote the book Drive, for those of you who know that book about motivation. And this book had some breakthrough thinking around what Daniel Pink called your chronotype. And it's pretty well researched by now. Some of you may have heard of this. But the chronotype is essentially your energy signature throughout the day. And 80% of the population have a very similar energy signature to what you can see on the screen. We have a peak in the morning, so we start well and have a peak of energy in the morning. We have a trough towards lunchtime and in the afternoon. And then at some point in the afternoon or even in the evening, we have a rebound where we get more energy back and we feel alive and bright and ready to take on the world again. And so the key with this tactic essentially is to be aware of your chronotype. What are those times for you that you're at your peak and you start your trough, or you're at your trough and you start your rebound? And the reason you do that thinking is because if you're trying to do your most valuable work in that trough and you're trying to schedule time for your deepest thinking or most important conversations during that trough, work is obviously going to take longer and be less impactful and less effective because you're not working from a point of high energy and high attention. And so one of those things you can do to improve your attention is by doing the work when you're in one of those peaks. So think about the report you're trying to write when you're tired versus how long it would take you if you're organized and you have clear, focused attention for that report. So we can burn a lot of effort and energy and time trying to do our most important work at our least productive times. So have a look at your day. When are you putting in that most valuable work? Make sure it's in those peak moments. You'll have an improvement in your productivity. And the last one is for those people who are already doing lots of valuable work, and what you want to be doing is saying, how do I get more done? I'm already doing some good valuable work. And the key here obviously is to talk about expanding time and the tasks that you do. And what I mean, obviously we can't expand time. Otherwise we would have written a book and made $1 million about time travel. But expanding time, I mean by using technology, for example. There's lots of apps out there that allow us to, Mealime, for example, is an app that allows you to create a menu for the week. It makes a shopping list for you that you take to the supermarket on your iPhone, so you know exactly the things to cook. You can then click on the app to then have the recipe as you cook that ingredients, and takes out a whole raft of what do we do for dinner tonight, or not shopping with the right food and having to find 15 minutes to go down to the supermarket, all that eat into our time. So we can expand time, get more of it by being smart with how we spend it. So apps are one of those things. The two other tactics I'd like to share with you is, the first one is probably the hardest word to say in the English language for many of us, is the word no, saying no. And so to expand your time, to get more time back for yourself in the valuable work you want to be doing, the key is not about saying no that might limit your career or make you seem not like a team player, where it's a hard no. It's saying no by saying yes slowly. And what I mean by that is not in slow motion, like no, but I mean saying it slowly by not just jumping to yes, I can fit something else in. Yes, I can get that done. Yes, I'm happy to be involved in that project. Yes, I'll get that report back to you by tomorrow. It's actually asking some questions that helps clarify the value of the work, how it fits in for you, how much time it's going to take, and whether you have that time. So think about questions like, how can I help you with your request? Or how does this support the XYZ strategy or priority that I'm working on at the moment? Or you might even ask, is this more important than ABC that I'm working on right now? And so what we're starting to do is, rather than jumping to that automated yes that we can often do and then find ourselves with too much to do, we're starting to get some clarification about the work, its value, how does it fit in, what gets delayed so this can get done, and we make work more manageable. That's another way that we can get back time, because we have time to reflect, recalibrate, fit in our exercise, and make sure that we're operating at our peak capacity. The other little bonus that I wanted to share with you for this webcast are the basics, the 101s around productivity, that I think are so important because they have such an impact, but they're easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. And so these are fundamental things that we often overlook, but can have a significant impact. So 1 to 2 breaks every 90 minutes has been proven over a number of different research, from behavioral scientists to psychologists to motivational theorists, that having that regular break helps us stay in that peak a little bit longer and avoid that trough. Exercise sessions, 3 to 4 of those per week, 5 to 6 glasses of water each day. If you think that our human body and cells are made up of over 70% of our body is made up of water, can have a huge impact just to avoid those sugary drinks or coffee that can add to that trough moment and keep ourselves at our peak. Eating regularly to maintain energy, 7 to 8 meals per day, and obviously getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep for adequate rest so that we're restored for the day. So the question to finish the webcast is, what strategy could you implement to have more impact? And I think it's an important question, because what that will do is, one, it gives you a commitment. And with that commitment, you move from listening to learning or leveraging. And so go back, have a look at one of those tactics that we suggested, re-listen to that section of the webcast, and maybe just see, what could I do to implement that tactic, and see where that takes you. Of course, if this was valuable for you, there's lots more of these videos that I produce to people who follow or are part of the tribe of people who like the work that I do and I keep in contact with regularly. So if this has been helpful, feel free to register for that list. And also, if you just search for my name on the usual social platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter are the ones I spend most of my time and push this sort of content out to. I'd love to connect with you and stay connected in that way. good luck. I hope this has been helpful for you, and make sure you go and make an impact.